Welcome back to FM Story, and it's time for another rebuild. Croatian side Vukovar are the perfect underdog for a 5-season rebuild. Modest budget, passionate local sport, and real-life struggles that make a survival story compelling. The core narrative is simple: avoid the real-life relegation, stabilise the club, and push for mid-table security by Season 3 and European contention by Season 5. As you can see from the real-life table, although there's a game left in the season, Vukovar have been relegated on 28 points. Obviously, the first aim is to avoid relegation in Season 1, then push ourselves up the table. I think it's unlikely that in 5 seasons we'll get to challenge Dinamo Zagreb for the title, but that's sort of the stretch aim. Really, the aim is to get in and amongst those European places as we get towards the end of the 5 seasons. So let's have a look and see what we're taking over at Vukovar. So this is Vukovar who we are taking over, and it's going to be a tough task. I mean, obviously there's not much of a youth setup. The ground only holds 3,500, so we're not going to make money from ticket sales or anything like that. Financially, not an awful lot in the budget. 129,000 spend on transfers, with only £775 a week to spend on wages. Looking at the squad, it looks like most of our best players are in defensive positions, be it centre half, full back, goalkeeper, and also our most promising players seem to be defenders, defensive midfielders as well. So we've made it to the beginning of the season, and we've actually made it to the end of the summer transfer window, and we've not had the best of starts. We've picked up 3 points from 5 games. Sole win coming against Slaven Belupo, who are the team that are currently rooted to the bottom of the table. But realistically, it's not actually been as bad as I thought it potentially would be at the start. Obviously, we lost 2-0 at home on the opening day of the season, but then every other game we've scored goals in. The 3 other games that we've lost, I mean, including the game against Dinamo, we've only lost by 1 goal. So we're obviously doing something right. Recruitment-wise, I mean, we've not sent anyone out because we couldn't really afford it. We've brought in 3 players on free transfers. First of which is Siduba Sumar, can play sort of up front in the 3 behind the front man, and can play wide in a 4-4-2. 34, so definitely not a 1 for the long term, but just hopefully a bit of quality to see us through this opening season. And then on deadline day, we picked up another couple of free transfers, the first of which was Ali Ghazal, again, experienced Egyptian defender, comes in with a bit of quality, can play in the defensive midfield as well, and hopefully, again, not 1 for the long term, but 1 to see us through this first season or 2. And then the final addition, Bakri Nimaga, play in midfields. Again, just a bit of an upgrade on what we had, hopefully. And he's a bit younger than the other 2 we brought in, so he might last a bit further into the rebuild. We are going with a 4-4-2 in possession, and then drop in the defensive midfielders and one of the front men to try and make us more solid. I mean, we've managed to score plenty of goals so far. We have not been solid, I think is the kindest thing you can say for that. But as we said, not the worst start. I mean, we have only won 1 in 5, but hopefully we can kick on and hopefully finish a bit more secure in the league. Hopefully we're not flirting with relegation. And obviously the aim for this first season is to avoid relegation, which befell Vukovar in real life. Let's have a look and see how the rest of Season 1 plays out. And so Season 1 has come to an end, and as you can see from that snippet of the league table there, it's gone much, much better than we could ever imagined. Finishing in 5th with 50 points from our 36 games. Obviously, some weird drift of Istra in fourth and then the bigger clubs. But very, very comfortably avoided relegation. Almost double the points of Slaven Blupo, who have been relegated. We did, after we left off, we did pick up form, a nice run through September, October, November and December, and then everything kind of fell off a cliff. February, March, and before we picked up some big victories in April and a couple of victories towards the end of the season. I mean, we did manage to pick up a victory away at Hajduk towards the end of the season. So overall, a pretty decent season. And we also made it to the semi-final of the Croatian Cup, getting beat in the semi-final by Istra 3-1. Looking at the squad, undoubted star of the season, Jakov Puljic, 40 games, 29 goals, 8 assists, highest average rating. He was definitely a star. Only one other player in double figures for goals was Seduba Sumar. Top of the assists was Bosic, who's been playing fullback, and Robin Gonzalez, who's been playing on the left wing. And we've managed to get a bit of money to spend. I mean, there's not much. We're going to have to adjust the budget because £210 a week is not going to go very far on the wages. But 4.74 million transfer-wise. Some big work ahead of season 2 to try and capitalise on what was a pretty decent first season. So we're at the end of the summer transfer window at the start of season 2, and as you can see from the league table that we can see there, we've had a pretty decent start to the season. We've picked up 10 points from 7 games. We're currently sat in 5th. Transfer-wise, we've seen a few players leave. Bakri Numaga has gone to Varaždin because he really wasn't getting the game time that we thought he was going to get at the start of the season when we brought him in. So we managed to make a profit on him. The most disappointing one is possibly losing Moreno Zivkovic at the end of his contract to Dinamo. He had no intention of signing a new deal. And then in terms of players we've brought in, so firstly, we've brought in Martin Pilic, can play pretty much almost everywhere. Going to be mostly as a central midfielder. Brought in at the end of his contract on a free transfer. Then we went to Slovan Blupo, who'd just been relegated, and picked up a couple of defenders. Firstly, Dominik Kovacevic, experienced, more for depth than to be a starter, but just someone who we can rely on if we need to, and also he satisfies the homegrown side of things that we need for having players in the matchday squad. And then the other defender we brought in from Slovan Blupo, more likely to be involved as a starter, and as you can see, I mean, he started all 7 games in the league so far. Zvonimir Katalinic can play anywhere across the back four and at a push in that defensive midfield role. He hopefully will be with us for the rest of this rebuild. We've then picked up a couple of players on free transfers. So firstly, Pedro Aparicio, Portuguese midfielder, comes in and just adds a bit of quality on the ball. And then Abbas Badji, and again another midfielder at the other end of his career, young and hopefully developed, but also brings a bit of quality on the ball that we didn't have last season. And then the final signing was a bit of a left field one. Han Kwang Song, centre forward from North Korea, has come in on a free transfer and hasn't exactly set the world alight so far. He's only picked up 1 goal in his opening 7 games, but hopefully he can be someone that can stick the ball in the back of the net for us. Tactically, we're sticking with what we started with, so we've got that 4-4-2 in possession, and then dropping a couple of players back in when we don't have the ball and pushing the wingers on just to give us an outlet. As we said, we've had a pretty decent start to the season, picking up those 10 points from the 7 games to begin with. What is a bit of a concern is we've drawn 4 other games, but big victory against Dinamo, coming from 1-0 down and 2-1 down. the 3 points there. That was a really big game. Unfortunately, we followed that up by losing against Varaždin in the last minute. But we've started well. Hopefully, we can kick on and turn some of those draws into victories. And let's see how Season 2 pans out. Season 2's done, and we've consolidated. We've ended up with the same number of points as we had in Season 1. We've finished a place behind where we were last season. And again, pretty comfortable away from the relegation zone. 20 points clear of bottom of the table Lokomotiva. It is obviously only Vukovar's second season in the top flight. And this was the aim, consolidate and then push on towards the end of the rebuild. We kind of had an up and down season. We didn't really, unlike last season, put together any particularly decent runs of consecutive results. We managed to lose in the semi-final of the Croatian Cup to Istra for the second season in a row. Performance-wise, Puljic has dropped right off, but he is getting on a bit, and he didn't start as many games as he did last season. He scored 12 this season. Top goal scorer was North Korean Han Kwang-song, and Robin Gonzalez was right up there in terms of the assists again as well. Going into Season 3, we've got 4.56 million available. We've got a bit more wiggle room in the wage budget than we did last season as well. So hopefully we can improve the team to be able to push on again in Season 3. So Season 3's begun. We've made it to the end of the summer transfer window. We've not had the best of starts so far. 7 games, 7 points. And we've already lost 4 of the opening 7 games. So things aren't going particularly well, and we need to step things up. We're going to avoid a bit of a step back this season. Transfer-wise, a couple of players went out that were never going to be involved in the first team picture. As we did last season, we've raided one of the team that got relegated from the top division in Lokomotiva and signed their best player in Czech Mbak Diop, young 21-year-old Senegalese central defender. Already got under 21 caps for Senegal. Hopefully he can kick on as we go through the rest of the rebuild. Then we've picked up another young defender in Erbol Bakidinov, who's come in, 19-year-old Kyrgyzstan player who's already got 10 caps for the national team. He immediately comes in and becomes one of our best players and will be a real threat down that right-hand side. And then the free transfers began. We brought in Eirik Haugen, experienced Norwegian defender, can play centre-half, can play left-back. We added Matthias Pellegrini, who can play on either side and at a push in the middle. Nesman Toussaint, 24-year-old Ivory Coast midfielder, brought in to give us a bit more depth in the middle of the pitch. And then Juan Pablo Zazaya brought in as a goalkeeper because we only had one goalkeeper on the books in the first team squad. We are going to have to be careful going forward about the number of foreign players we sign, because we need to have so many Croatian players in the matchday squad, and that could start to pose a problem, and given the number of foreign players we've signed in recent seasons. Let's have a look and see how the rest of Season 3 panned out. So we have taken another bit of a step back this season. Season 1 we finished 5th, Season 2 we finished 6th, Season 3 we finished 7th. We haven't taken that much of a step back because we have only dropped a couple of points. It wasn't as good as the first couple of seasons. So we have finished 7th. We were very, very comfortably safe of going down. But the aim was to consolidate and then push on towards the end of the rebuild. So we've got 2 seasons left. We need to be pushing on for those European spots. We have been coming back at the end of December each season just to have a look at players who have got expiring contracts to see if there's anyone we A want to sign or B we want to keep that are in our squad. We did bring someone in January, which was Emiliano Gomez, Uruguayan, can play anywhere in the front four. Didn't really get the game time that he probably could have had in the second half of the season, but hopefully he's one that can strengthen for the season 4 and 5. We just need to be very careful of the nationality requirement. And because of the players we'd signed, particularly the centre-halves we've signed, we decided to switch the formation up during the season. So we've gone to 3-4-3. I guess you'd call it an attack, and a 5-2-3 out of possession. And it seems to have done relatively okay. I mean, the start of the season we obviously knew hadn't started well. We did pick things up before we changed the formation. But then we had another couple of bad spells. And March and April in particular weren't great. And for the third season in a row, we've lost in the semi-final of the Croatian Cup to Istra. We did change the formation at the end of April, by the look, I think, which saw us get a big victory over Dinamo at 5-3. We beat the relegated Croatia 6-2, and we got revenge on Istra on the last day of the season 2-0. We just need to hope that new formation is going to work going forward into season 4. We do have 3 million spent. We've got a bit more in the wage budget as well, and we need to be careful about who we sign going forward as well. So, season 4 started better than season 3 did. We've got 11 points from the opening 7 games. We're sticking with the 3 at the back, because we managed to do some good recruitment in the summer. I mean, the pick of the players we've brought in, Thiago Espinosa down the left-hand side. We're playing with advanced wing back on the left-hand side. He's fitted like a glove to that formation. And he's picked up a couple of assists in the opening 7 games. Got a decent average rating. Perhaps the best player we've picked up so far is Mohamed Diop, 19-year-old Senegalese under-21 international. Can play off the left, right, through the middle, and he has started the season on fire. 5 games, 5 goals, 3 assists, 7.86 average rating so far. Hopefully he can continue that form for the rest of the season, but that might mean we don't have him for very long. We have started the season pretty well. Unfortunately, we lost on the opening day of the season, but we've beaten Istra, we've beaten Gorica, and we've beaten Hajduk. We did lose to Dinamo, where we didn't really turn up. But hopefully, as the players get used to each other, get used to the formation, we can hopefully kick on and challenge for a European spot this season. So without further ado, let's see what happened in season 4. And here we are, the end of season 4, and somehow, some way, we have managed to win the league. We were only planning on challenging for the European spots. We've ended up finishing ahead of Dinamo at the top of the table. We did overtake them on the last day of the season. We won 1-0 away, already relegated to Brava. They drew 1-1 away at Varashdin, and it was enough for us to leapfrog them at the top of the table. When we came back at the mid-point of the season to look at the contracts and things, we did actually pick up someone who was unattached at the time, which is Onuche Ogbelu, Nigerian international midfielder. He's come in and played 17 games in the league in the second half of the season, scored 3 goals, 4 assists, and was a key part in us kicking on in that second half of the season. Looking at how the season went, after we kind of left off after the transfer window, we went on a big run through September, October, November, December, January, without barely losing a game. February wasn't great for the most part, but then from the end of February, we went on another great run, some big victories. We finally didn't face Istra in the semi-final of the Croatian Cup, and we beat Hajduk on penalties. Unfortunately, we then lost to Rijeka in the final, but we did bounce back with that 1-0 victory on the final day of the season. Eric Haugen popping up with a late winner to win us the title. And so we've kind of achieved the aim of the rebuild already. I mean, we're 4 seasons in. the aim was avoid relegation in season 1, consolidate the position in the top division, and then push for the European spots. But we've won the league in season 4. We're going to have Champions League football in season 5. I think we're going to struggle to keep a hold of the likes of Espinosa and Diop into season 5. But who knows? Can we go back to back and win another league title? And so season 5 has begun. We're at the end of the transfer window. We've got 8 points from 5 games. We're currently sat in 4th in the league. Transfer wise, there's been a lot of players come in, and a lot of players have gone. Aparicio has really kind of passed his best, so he's gone at the end of his contract. Andres Roman had been knocked out of the team at right back. And then unfortunately, we have lost Espinosa and Mohamed Diop. Espinosa's gone to Al Batin for 2.4 million, and Mohamed Diop has gone to Chelsea. Now, in terms of the players that we've brought in, firstly we brought in Mila Ivanovski, Macedonian. It's a defensive midfielder, like some really good mentals and physicals. Only 19, and hopefully he can kick on as the season goes on. We've brought in Caleb, who is a Brazilian who can play off the front, off the right as well. He's kind of come in and is mainly the Diop replacement. We brought in Mateus Cunha, who's another goalkeeper, just to give us a bit more quality in goal. And then we've got and try to sign as many Croatians as we can to help with filling out the matchday squad. So we've brought Marino Zivkovic back to the club. He left us at the end of season 1 to go to Dinamo. He barely played at Dinamo. He was out of contract and he's come back to Vukovar. We brought in Zenon Sabic, who can rather bizarrely can play on the right wing or at left back. We've signed him to be the replacement for Thiago Espinosa on the left hand side. He's not as good as Thiago Espinosa, but hopefully he can do a job for us there. We've brought in Antonio Mauric, centre-half, central defensive midfielder, can do a job if we need the extra body. Luka Dacia has come in, probably a better option than Mauric, but can basically do the same job as well. And then we brought in Roko Juraskin just to give us some options and some other options on the left and the right wing back areas. And then one of the better signings we made in the transfer window, another central midfielder. We seem to have signed a lot of them over the 5 seasons. Raheem Ibrahim, Ghanaian international. Looks like he could do a real good job for us in there as well. We obviously started in the Champions League qualifiers. We drew away against Ferencvaros, but lost the home leg to a late goal, which then put us into the Europa League qualifying. And over the course of 2 legs, we hammered Larnakas 10-0 on aggregate. We then drawn against Red Star in the final qualifying round of the Europa League. We lost the home leg 2-1. We won the away leg 4-3. I mean, we were 4-1 up. Would have seen us into the Europa League proper. But we lost 2 late goals and then ended up losing on penalties, which has seen us drop into the Conference League, which I think actually is probably a better match for where we are. We've been drawn against Vardar, Antalikis, Stuttgart, HJK, Sarajevo. Hopefully we can see if we can get through the league phase and into the knockouts there. As far as the league season's concerned, we've started reasonably well. Now we drew against Osijek in the opening game. We've then lost away at Gorice, which is a bad result. But we managed to then beat Slovan Belupo away from home. We've beaten Istra, and then in the most recent game we've drawn against Hajduk, and we were 1-0 down. In fact, we were 1-0 up. They got 2 very late goals And then Ogbelli with his second. I mean, he scored 1 minute into injury time at the end of the first half, 4 minutes into injury time at the end of the second half. And he's almost single-handedly grabbed us a point in that game. Final season. Can we go back-to-back in the league? How far can we go in the Conference League? Well, let's find out. And so we've made it to the end of season 5 and we've not managed to go back-to-back in the league. We have managed to finish third. So we have again qualified for European football. We were well off Hajduk and Dinamo this season. I think losing Espinosa and Diop was a big, big loss. Although we did have the top goal scorer in the league in Christopher Nakalinda. So, league phase of the Conference League, things actually went well. We finished in 6th. We made it straight into the knockouts without having to play the playoff round. We won 4. We drew against Stuttgart and ended up with 14 points from our 6 games and did a decent job in the league phase, to be perfectly honest. When you look at some of the teams that finished below us, like Shakhtar, Newcastle, Rennes, you would have thought they would have been ahead of us as far as the league phase was concerned. It meant we went into the knockout round of the last 16 and unfortunately we were drawn against Newcastle and ended up going out 3-0 in aggregate, lost both legs, and that was the end of our European adventure for the season. League-wise, we had some patchy spells. End of September wasn't great, and then we put a run together, and then went 4 games without a win. But we won a game, and then went another 4 games without a win. And then March and April were a bit hit and miss as well, either side of the Conference League. But we did end the season well, but ultimately we finished in 3rd, qualified for Europe for a second successive season. And given what we set out to do, I think we've done a pretty good job over the 5 years. And there we are, that's 5 seasons done and dusted with Vukovar. And I think you would have to say that was a success. We set out with the aim of avoiding relegation in season 1, which we achieved, consolidating the position in the league, and then towards the end of the save, the aim was to push towards Europe. And I think we've gone better than we expected. We managed to win that league in season 4. We've qualified for Europe again in season 5, and ultimately, I think that was an all-round success. Join us next time for another rebuild where we try to save someone who was relegated in real life this season. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.